2 years ago, I walked into a dingy dive bar to try stand-up comedy for the first time. And people immediately are just like, oh, what? Tell me more. And I was like, and I bombed and I bombed and I bombed and I failed and I failed and I failed, but I loved it. And that like taught me like just resilience. I was like, if I really love something and I really want to solve something, I can work hard and complete it. And that came also when I entered tech school without having any tech experience.
Has anything else crossed over from your previous career to your current career?
Yeah, so this is like something that I always try to stress when people are in my Twitch streams asking questions about my story or my interview process, was that although I was like working at Costco and I was doing theater and doing stand-up comedy, on paper, like my resume, it just shows that I had job experience from one job from the last 8 years. And that's not the most impressive thing. And so, and like having a college degree and not even working in that field. And so what I wanted to do when I was getting into the interview process was like, okay, I need to sit down and look at my experience and see what things I can highlight from that. So although I was at Costco for this extended period of time, you know, I went from the janitor to the marketing manager, where I was getting sent to Seattle to like learn about what we're going to do for the corporate, what we're going to do for that quarter, and getting training from corporate and then bringing it back to my store. And I opened up a brand new store and increased the customer base by like 5,000 members within a year. And it just like, finding little things like that and quantifying it makes me stand out. And I have also this background. It's like, it's not a CS degree or it's not a I don't know, whatever, just something else. I just like, I'm just this Costco guy that comes in and I have but I really came in and wanted to highlight specific things that I think would make me stand out. And I knew if I mentioned stand up, it always raises people's eyebrows. Like people are like, oh, that's cool. What's that like? And so my whole pitch to myself, like when people are like, oh, tell me about yourself. It's like 2 years ago, I walked into a dingy dive bar to try stand-up comedy for the first time. And people immediately are just like, oh, what? Tell me more. And I was like, and I bombed and I bombed and I bombed and I failed and I failed and I failed, but I loved it. And that like taught me like just resilience. I was like, if I really love something and I really want to solve something, I can work hard and complete it. And that came also when I entered tech school without having any tech experience. And then immediately people are like, yo, this guy's already on to the next interview. This guy's so good.
Yeah.
So yeah. I just wanted to focus on these little tiny things that made me stand out.
I think where it really is the networking. Like Creature Next, he's been in a bunch of streams. I see him in other streams. X, I see you around too as well. Aisha, I know you've been streaming and you're also at Relic. Like this network that's chatting with us right now, having this random conversation with Moy Danny, you know, this is where it's at. Like when I talk about the like that network, like this is a network of these people streaming, and this is what I've been trying to push DevRel, all of DevRel. I've been standing on like my soapbox and saying, this is where you need to be, because there's going to be a whole movement of people who are doing this on YouTube and Twitch, and we'll just leave everybody else in the dust. And I think it's going to be a slow burn until people figure that out.
Yeah, I do remember this. Maybe you can comment on this. I remember there's like old school DevRel and like there's like this new school DevRel, where it's like old school was like the conference speaker, the blog poster, like the expert type person. Now there's this online presence, the social media presence. Do you think that is it these two heads just like combating each other? Like, no, this is better. No, this is better. Or is it now merging into one?
I think if you could replace that old school, new school to gatekeeping, I think that's what it is. And like, I'm just being 100% honest. Like everybody hates the word influencer in tech, but it exists. So like if you mentioned Kelsey Hightower, Kelsey is an influencer, whether he likes it or not. Like if I can get Kelsey to show up on my thing, like I know my thing, my conference, whatever it is, it'll be successful because he brings a movement. I had a stream on GitHub with Evan Yu, the creator of Vue, like super humble guy. He's an influencer. He knows it. I know it. If I can get him to show up on my thing, it's going to go great. If I show up at thing, I'll have some people show up.
I'll be there.
as the more that we want to avoid the influencer and this and that, there are folks who have figured out the game in the system, including myself. Like, I can get my talk accepted at a conference, and this is my hubris, but also just me knowing that I've figured out the system. I did a whole YouTube video about how to set up your abstract in a way that you could sell it. Also, I came from sales. That was my job before this. So like, I can sell you on my talk without even doing any slides or writing any code. And I've done that for the past 4 years. And that world is now leaving. And I had to figure out what I want to be when I grow up, or come out of sheltering in place in COVID. And what I want to do is not travel. And because I did that for a couple of years, and it was great. I got to see a bunch of the world. But I think what's going to happen is the old heads, they'll start YouTube channels. They'll start shifting their conference talks into a place where you can actually consume it remote, because like, you have 2 meetups, or you have a conference and a meetup that you're Future Stack and Ruby Galaxy. Folks got to know how to talk on the camera. So why not just practice on Twitch?
Right. Now man, this is so cool. I feel like I'm learning so much from you. Like, this is also really cool, because when I first started at New Relic, we have this open source day on Fridays, and I was like, I've never contributed to open source before. Does anyone have any suggestions? And someone, I think it was actually Aisha, dropped open sauce. And I opened this, I saw you, and then I saw the line from Gucci, and I was like, yo, another developer who listens to Gucci. I want to be friends with this person. I want to meet them. There was a moment when I started where I was really nervous about who I was going to be at work, and who I was going to be online, and who I was going to be felt like I had to put a face on for all these different spaces. And I was concerned because I was like, oh, my Twitter is just like jokes and like me being me. And I was worried that I only had to do like tech stuff. And Jonan was like, no, just be you. I hired you because you are you. Like, you're not someone else. And I was like, oh, okay, that's cool. I don't know why I thought otherwise, but okay, perfect.
Yeah, that was a conversation that actually came up on Twitter with Jerome Hardaway, who he just recently left DevRel to go work at an engineering role in Microsoft. But he mentioned it publicly, so hopefully it's okay. I'm mentioning it publicly as well. But like, it seemed like his previous employer, who was doing DevRel for, wanted access to his Twitter, and would be like, hey, your Twitter account doesn't say our company on there. Like, could you? And he's like, no. And like, that's like, I don't think that should be a requirement for DevRel. I think doing DevRel, you should be able to talk about the product, and you should be able to answer questions, and be able to be not a people pleaser, but a party planner. So like, all day, every day, what I'm doing. I was just talking to the maintainer of Create React app. He had a problem with GitHub Actions last night. And I'm like, that's interesting. I've never seen this before. Turns out I have seen it. He's just using it in a different way. So then the first thing I do is I drop his tweet in a Slack channel and said, hey, this guy's important. Could someone help him out? And that's all I do all day. It's like, I don't try to solve it myself. I try to introduce people who could solve it better than I could and get them in there. And so like, I think DevRel at a point, it's evolved to the point where like, you don't have to be the expert. You can just be the expert.
That is good. That's good to know, because there's definitely like that same thought process, like, oh, I need to know this. I should know the answer to this. But there's a whole group of engineers or product managers or SRE people that work at New Relic that I'm just like, oh, I'm in the same Slack with them. I can message them and see if they know the answer to this.
It's all about just being approachable, because I think there's some things like when being a face of a brand, which surprised, you're a face of New Relic. Just wanted to let you know that in case you didn't know. But being a face of brand comes with some responsibility. So like, I would say, hey, let's not go drag other tech companies through the mud, or let's not have hot takes. Like there's a lot of stuff at GitHub that's like people have questions about, and there's a lot of things that I have answers for, but I just don't publicly share, because I don't think it's my place to be a PR person for GitHub. I think what I want to do is I want to talk about these features, and I want to talk about, Beyonce whenever she drops a new thing on us. Like, I think that's a little more important at this time than talking about some random outage at GitHub.
What I feel like is really, I don't have to work when I do that, where I'm just being like an authentic person. it's really easy for me, and I'm happy to say that's who I want to be, and I'm glad now that I have a job that allows me to do that, and I can find some success by just being myself. So that's really exciting for me, especially for being so new. Just the network that I've already created or been introduced to is. It's just it's something that I've worked for like the last 10 years, and now I'm like meeting all these people in the span of like 3 months.
Yeah, I mean, it could be a fire hose.
I appreciate you taking the time to just like share your wisdom.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying yes, even though you just joined tech company. My son thinks that all I do is hand out cat stickers and make YouTube videos, which is kind of true. That's kind of what I
do. You are probably the coolest dad in his eyes.
I'm his only dad. Let's get that straight.